Simon & Schuster Audio presents Star Trek, Sarek, by A.C. Crispin, read by Mark Leonard.
It was sunset on Vulcan. In the west, 40 Eridani A was setting in splashes of amethyst, gold, and coral. But Sarek faced east, watching Vulcan's sister world Taruk. The Watcher hung close in the sky, a huge bloated shape dotted with raging volcanoes. It was Sarek's habit to contemplate Taruk whenever he faced a difficult decision. As he stood on his terrace, logic chains ran through his mind, presenting pros and cons. Should he act? If he did, he would break all the rules of diplomacy and interstellar law. And yet, if he did not act, millions of lives could be lost. Sarek frowned. Dare he risk interstellar war? Was this a case where the needs of the many outweighed the needs of the few? Or the one? A decision crystallized within him. Logic and necessity must outweigh ethical considerations. He must preserve the peace, even at the price of his own principles. Sarek nodded slightly at Taruk. He would leave for Earth immediately. The ambassador went to bid his wife farewell. Amanda was in her sitting room, gazing out at the rocky spires of the desert garden she had planted when Spock was a small child. When she saw her husband, she smiled. "Sarek, I was going to join you on the terrace, but I must have fallen asleep." "Greetings, my wife." The ambassador permitted himself the small smile that he reserved for her alone. Extending 2 fingers, Sarek ceremoniously touched them to hers, allowing the mental bond they shared to convey a depth of feeling the ambassador had never voiced aloud. Gazing down at Amanda's face, Sarek suddenly realized that she appeared drawn and pale. She'd aged in the past few weeks. Concerned, he regarded her searchingly. "Amanda, you do not look well. You must consult your physician." His wife shrugged. "I expect I may have picked up a cold, Sarek. Don't worry, I'll be fine." Sarek was not reassured. After informing her of his mission to Earth, the ambassador repeatedly insisted that his wife see her doctor. Finally, she sighed wearily. "Very well, Sarek, but why must you go to Earth so suddenly?" "I wish to discuss the recent growth of the radical Keep Earth Human League." Amanda shook her head. "I remember when that group was nothing but a haven for ineffectual crackpots and ignorant fools. But now, those idiots are trying to convince everyone that Vulcan is responsible for every disaster from the probe's devastation 3 years ago to the Klingon raids along the neutral zone." Her husband nodded. "The Keel's sudden growth is disquieting. I must investigate the situation personally, but I do not wish to leave you when you are ill, Amanda." She gave him a wan smile. "Don't worry about me, Sarek. I will be fine." "Perhaps I should send a message to Spock so he could be here with you." "No, Sarek. I do not want that. Promise me you will not call him." "Very well, I promise. As long as I have your word, you will see your physician, Amanda." "I promise, Sarek." Two days later, Sarek stood at the window of the Vulcan consulate in San Francisco. Outside, a noisy demonstration by the Keep Earth Human League was gathering. He could hear their chant. The ambassador turned to find his young aide Soren beside him. This sudden growth of the keel is most disturbing, Ambassador. These humans are behaving in a most illogical manner. Sarek nodded in agreement. They are demanding that I speak with their leader in Duna. I intend to investigate the causes of this problem personally, Soren. Accompanied by his aides, Sarek left the consulate and walked out to face the chanting crowd. They grew louder and more strident. The ambassador walked up to the closed gates of the consulate and halted. I am Ambassador Sarek. Which of you is in Duna? There was a ripple in the throng. Moments later, a tall, distinguished black human stepped forth. I am Induna. Greetings, Induna. I wish you peace and long life. I accept no good wishes from Earth's enemy. I wish only good relations between our worlds. Will you enter the gates so we may speak together? Induna drew himself up haughtily. I have nothing to say to you, Ambassador. I refuse to speak with a coward who hides behind locked gates. I have nothing to hide, Induna. Very well. I will come to you. Sarek knew that the honor of all Vulcan was at stake as he stepped into the crowd. He could telepathically sense the hatred surrounding him, and it nearly made him ill. The Vulcan halted before the tall human. What is it you wish of me, Induna? We demand that all Vulcans withdraw from this world forever. From now on, Sarek, leave Earth to the humans. Suddenly the shouting intensified and the demonstrators grew violent. A rock struck Sarek on the arm. The mob went berserk as Federation security officers moved in with crowd-control stunners and force fields. Sarek was shoved forward, almost into Induna's arms, and the keel leader struck at him. Sarek grabbed the man's shoulder, and the Vulcan's steely fingers located the proper spot and squeezed. Induna's eyes rolled up in his head, and the keel leader collapsed. The ambassador stood in the middle of the panicking mob, stunned. The moment his fingers had closed on Induna's flesh, Sarek had telepathically sensed the human's mental state. And what he sensed shocked him. Induna was under mental influence from an outside source. Someone had inflamed the man's incipient xenophobia into a raging firestorm of hatred and bigotry. And that someone was Vulcan. Later in the park-like garden behind the consulate, the ambassador walked with his young aide. Soren, the sudden growth of the keel is no accident. These humans are being influenced by off-worlders. The keel is being telepathically incited to hate and fear all aliens, but especially Vulcans. Soren regarded the ambassador, his dark eyes troubled. Do you have proof of this off-world threat, sir? Sarek shook his head, his expression grave. Not yet. I must gain proof of my suspicions before I can inform Federation security and the President of what I suspect. The safety of the entire Federation is at stake, Soren. Why? What do you mean, sir? Off-worlders are plotting to start an interstellar war. The growth of the keel is but one facet of their strategy. The handsome young Vulcan raised an eyebrow, his dark eyes widening. Please explain, Ambassador. Who do you believe is responsible for this? Sarek regarded him questioningly. Tell me, Soren, what do you know of the Freelands? Soren stared into the distance and concentrated. Freeland is an isolated world located near the middle of the Romulan neutral zone. The Romulans have never annexed the planet, possibly because it is so inhospitable and remote. Freeland maintains a policy of strict neutrality in all interstellar negotiations. Sarek nodded at his aide. Correct. Continue. Freeland is an icy world where only the equatorial regions are habitable. A high technology level, especially in the field of cryogenics. But the Freelands do not possess space travel of their own. Excellent, Soren. And what of the Freelands themselves? More is known of the world than of its people. The natives of Freeland have a taboo against revealing their faces or bodies. They shroud themselves in muffling robes and masks impregnated with selenite, so their actual appearance can neither be seen nor scanned with sensors. No off-worlder has ever landed on the planet itself. Sarek raised an eyebrow and nodded encouragingly. Go on, Soren. Little is known of Freeland society. All dealings with off-worlders are conducted at an orbiting space station. And what of their political and diplomatic interactions, Soren? The Freelands maintain a policy of strict neutrality when attending Federation summits or other diplomatic events. They do trade with other planets, and they also send envoys to scientific conferences. Sarek nodded. Correct, Soren. You are commendably well informed. The Freelands, however, are far more than they seem. I have scheduled a meeting with the Freeland liaison Terran. Please arrange 2 passages to Freeland immediately. Certainly, sir. But what do you hope to gain by traveling to Freeland now? Proof, Soren. Proof that the Freelands pose a grave threat. Will you help me? It will be dangerous, I warn you. The young Vulcan nodded. I will be honored to serve you in any way I can, Ambassador. Three days later, Sarek sat facing the comlink in his quarters aboard the Freeland space station. On the screen was the masked and shrouded figure of Terran, the liaison he had dealt with for over 60 years. Greetings, Terran. I wish you peace and long life. What brings you to Freeland, Ambassador? I wish to reopen our discussions of import tariffs on Vulcan raw materials, as opposed to Freeland cryo-components, liaison. Very well, then. Let us begin. I have many duties to attend to. As the negotiations progressed, Sarek's thoughts were only partly on the subject at hand. With another portion of his mind, he was going over his plans for that same night. Whatever happened, he must not allow himself to be caught by the Freelands. To do so would leave him open to a justified charge of spying. And if Sarek was correct about the Freelands, the penalty for espionage would be death. It was well after midnight when Sarek and Soren met in the corridor outside their quarters in the Freeland space station. Both Vulcans were dressed in dark tunics and trousers, and wore soft-soled desert boots that would make no betraying sound. Sarek carried a small but powerful Vulcan tricorder. As they approached the maintenance area of the station with its no admittance sign in 7 languages, Soren indicated the surveillance vid unit. What about the alarms, Ambassador? I have disabled them before I left my quarters. Sarek tapped on the entry pad and the portal shot apart. Quickly, the 2 Vulcans entered the maintenance area. Sarek located the massive central computer unit. After disabling the audio link and initiating a manual interface, Sarek then linked his tricorder with the Freeland system, setting it to run through the standard external data conventions at various wavelengths. The results made him frown. This was not Federation standard. As Soren watched fascinated, the Ambassador downloaded a series of valid programs he had designed especially for this purpose. They would burrow deep into the Freeland computer system, unlocking its secrets and rendering it amenable to Sarek's commands. By returning error messages to the central processors, another valid program would disguise the Vulcan's tampering. Moments later, the elder Vulcan nodded in satisfaction as data began racing across his tricorder's tiny screen. Excellent. We are in. Now to access their main databanks. As the two Vulcans watched, random areas of memory began to appear on the screens. Soren's eyes widened as he made out the characters. That is Romulan script. Yes, it is, as I suspected, Soren. Copying this will constitute my proof. Ambassador, this means that the Freelands are in actuality Romulans. Correct, Soren. The Freelands have been spying on Federation worlds in disguise for decades. Sarek quickly copied all of the data he could that would prove his suspicions. The ambassador pointed at one entry. Observe, Soren. Terran is actually a high-ranking Romulan officer, a wing commander. Without warning, a sudden familiar sound made both Vulcans leap to their feet. Ambassador, a transporter beam. The Romulans must have beamed up to investigate the malfunctions. I will disengage the valets and attempt to dispose of the evidence. Prepare to distract the newcomers should it prove necessary. We must not be caught. Quickly, Sarek initiated the last valet, the one designed to eradicate all evidence of his tampering. As he stood poised, tricorder in hand, he knew he must rid himself of the evidence of his spying. If the approaching Romulans could not prove espionage, he might be able to feign illness and thus escape capture. Seeing a nearby recycling unit, the ambassador dropped the tricorder in and activated it. Glancing around for a potential hiding place, he saw none. Suddenly, he heard a loud crash next door. The approaching footsteps retreated as the technicians went to investigate. Soren, Sarek thought. He's providing a distraction. Sarek managed to leave the maintenance area quickly. He met his aide in the corridor, and the two stole back to their quarters, undetected. The next day, Sarek waited tensely for some indication that his late-night foray had been discovered, but none was forthcoming. As he met with Taran, Soren suddenly appeared. Ambassador, I have just received an urgent message from your wife's physician. Sarek went to his quarters to receive the message in private. Timal, his wife's healer, stared at him intently. Ambassador Sarek, your wife is gravely ill. She does not have long to live. I advise you to return home immediately. Deep in the foundations of the huge fortress manor on Kronos, the esteemed Klingon ambassador Kamarag was holding a clandestine meeting. The only illumination in the ancient stone-walled room came from wan battery-powered lamps. Valdir shivered, but not from the cold in the room. Her uncle, the esteemed Klingon ambassador Kamarag, had arranged this meeting so he could address a hand-picked group of Klingon starship commanders. Warriors, we have all seen what is happening to our empire since the destruction of Praxis. Soon there will be no place for us in this galaxy. Are we Klingon warriors, or are we as weak and cowardly as females? Resentment filled Valdir, but she hid her feelings. When her father had been killed, Kamarag had taken his widow and 4 children under his protection. Then, several months ago, Valdir's mother and brother had been killed when Praxis was destroyed. Kamarag had taken Valdir and her brothers to live with him in the ancestral home. Valdir owed her uncle complete loyalty, so she swallowed hard and remained silent. Valdir glanced up at her uncle. What was Kamarag getting at? We may have to serve Kronos outside the strictures of official government policy. We must have the courage, the honor, the valor to serve our empire as warriors, as leaders, not merely as those who blindly follow orders given by our nominal superiors. Valdir's eyes widened. Her uncle was skirting the edge of advocating sedition, outright treason. Such talk was dishonorable. The assembled starship commanders watched the ambassador avidly, all except Commander Karaz, who pounded his fist on the ancient table. "Camarade, you go too far. I have no love for Azit-Bor, but I cannot disobey my oath as a Klingon officer. I will not turn renegade." Valdir had to restrain herself from leaping up and saluting the commander. "Karaz, you mistake me. I have said nothing about disobeying oaths. I have only asked each of you to think about the government's current policies. What is the harm in that?" Karaz drew back when the other officers muttered agreement with the ambassador. "Perhaps I have misread you, Camarade." The Klingon ambassador nodded and dismissed the secret meeting. Valdir hurried out into the corridor. One of the captains, Karg, had expressed interest in taking the vow with her, and Karg made her flesh crawl. With dismay, she saw her way out was blocked by the officers who lingered. She quickly backed into a recess in the wall that had once held wine casks. As she waited for the soldiers to disperse, she overheard Karg speaking to her uncle. "An excellent speech, Ambassador. It all went well except for Karaz. He should be Azit-Bor's personal servant if he wishes to clean her boots with his tongue. I knew he would be trouble. We handled it between us. Karaz will not betray us with Azit-Bor. Tell me, how did your latest raid go?" The best yet. One of those mixed colonies, mostly Tellarites. You should have heard the females and the young ones squeal as we cut them down." Valdir grimaced. There was no honor in mowing down non-combatants. "Was it a rich world, Karg?" "No, there was little worth taking on Patelva, but it was wonderful to feel the heat of battle and smell the richness of fresh spilt blood again." Peering out, Valdir saw that their backs were turned, and she tiptoed away. Later that day, Kamarag caught up with Valdir. "Everything went well today, did it not, niece?" "They all seem to share your point of view, uncle, except Keras." Kamarag dismissed the commander with a wave. "Hundreds of years from now, our names will be remembered as the ones who saved the Empire and the Klingon way of life." Valdir frowned. "But I thought the Empire was making peace with the Federation. When Captain Kirk saved the Chancellor's life—" "Kirk! May Kirk be devoured by 10,000 demons on his way to oblivion. Kirk lives still, and I have no peace." Startled, Valdir stepped back as her uncle strode toward her, furious. "But, uncle—" "Kirk, I will never regain my honor until he is dead, until I can dip my hands in his fresh blood." "But, uncle, Kirk saved Chancellor Azit-Bor's life. She will never agree to having him killed." "I care nothing for her. She will not stop me, niece." "Stop you in what, uncle?" "Stop me from carrying out my plan." Kamarag smiled, and the sight of that smile chilled the young Klingon woman. "What plan?" "You will see, Valdir. Just wait, and you will see." Journal of Amanda Grayson Sarek, September 16th, 2293. What is it like to die? Vulcans, of course, have their Katras. Spock and Sarek will live on after their deaths. Will I? Sarek would say that speculating about such things is illogical, but I cannot help wondering. The coming days will be harder for Sarek than for me. I have known what is happening to me for months now. Even though I wish I could live longer, I have had a good life, and I am content. Captain James T. Kirk stood in the glow of the transporter beam, dreading this beam down. Yesterday, the Enterprise had been summoned to Patola to deal with the aftermath of a violent raid. As he materialized, Kirk could hear the sounds of the wounded. Kirk found Spock waiting for him. "Captain, I have interviewed the survivors. Klingons did this." Kirk sighed. "I know. I just finished speaking to Chancellor Azatbor on subspace communications. She confirmed that they've detected a number of vessels crossing the neutral zone into Federation space." Spock raised an eyebrow. "Authorized vessels?" "No. She swore to me on her father's honor that these ships were renegades, like Chang." "The number of raids is increasing alarmingly, Captain." "I'm afraid Azatbor is losing control, Spock. Everything looked so hopeful last month at Kittimer, but now, without the support of the Federation, Azatbor has little chance to remain in power, Captain. Some factions suggest that Azatbor is secretly behind these raids." "She's not. Azatbor, like her father, wants peace. She knows that the only hope for Kronos' survival lies in receiving Federation aid." The Vulcan nodded, his dark eyes bleak. He started to comment, but before he could do so, McCoy's voice made both officers turn. "Where's that Federation hospital ship? Damn it, Jim, my people are ready to drop. We've got to get some relief." "The ship's on its way, Bones." "This is one hell of a mess. Seeing what those Klingons did almost makes me sorry I've spent the past month studying Klingon physiology and treatment." Suddenly the Vulcan's communicator beeped. "Spock here." "Mr. Spock, I've received a Priority 1 message from your father." "Please relay it, Commander Uhura." Kirk watched the Vulcan tense as he scanned the communique. "What is it, Spock?" "My mother. My father reports that she is ill, terminally ill." "Spock, go home, now. That's an order." Spock hesitated. "But we are on a mission. My duty—" Leonard McCoy shook his head. "Damn it, Spock, don't be an idiot. This is a medical mission. If you're a doctor, it's news to me. Go home. Your mother needs you." The Vulcan finally nodded. "Very well. I will depart immediately." It was twilight on Vulcan. Sarek stood alone on his terrace watching Taruk at full phase. He'd returned from Freeland last night, and today he'd met with his wife's physician. As he gazed at the full bloated sphere, Sarek silently struggled to regain his control. Amanda. Amanda was dying. Sarek had not wanted to believe it, but one glance at his wife's face had convinced him. The Vulcan gripped the balcony railing, feeling dazed and unsteady. His logic, was gone. The core of his mental balance was gone, and in its place was pain, and fear, and grief. Amanda. As if in answer to his silent whisper, his own name resounded softly within his mind. Sarek. Immediately the ambassador turned and left the balcony. He found his wife in her sitting room. He hesitated for a second in the doorway, summoning calm, seeking control, at least outwardly. Squaring his shoulders, he pushed the door open and walked in. Amanda was gazing out at her garden. In the watcher's eerie light, she was very thin and pale. Only her smile was unchanged. "Amanda, you should be resting. You know how I love to watch Taruk shine in the garden at night. Is it pleasant out?" Sarek knew what she wanted, and he shook his head. "Yes, it is. However, it is not cool enough for you to go outside, my wife. Logic dictates that you must save your strength, and the heat depletes it. For heaven's sake, Sarek, I know it's hot outside, but I've been cooped up in this house for nearly a week, and I am tired of resting. I want to sit in my garden, damn it." Sarek was taken aback by her vehemence. He stared at her, silent. "Besides, Sarek, what difference will it really make?" The ambassador could not find it in himself to deny her wish. "Very well, we will go outside to the garden." Sarek bent over and scooped his wife up as he would have a child. She was hardly heavier than one. When they reached the garden, he carefully lowered Amanda onto a stone bench. When she was comfortably settled, he seated himself beside her. Her eyes shone as her gaze took in the beauty of the night, the garden, and the hovering planet that dominated the sky. "It is lovely. I knew it would be." "It is good to see you here again, my wife. The garden's appearance is not aesthetically complete without its creator." Amanda, recognizing the compliment, smiled at him. "Sarek, I do believe you are getting sentimental." Her husband's lips curved upward as he permitted himself the faint, answering smile that few besides his wife had ever seen. "My comment is entirely logical. This is your garden. Logically, it is the most attractive when you are present." "You're rationalizing, Sarek. It's a good thing our son Spock can't hear you. He would be shocked." Despite Sarek's control, the muscles in his jaw tightened fractionally at the mention of his son's name. Amanda's smile faded. "Have you heard from Spock? You didn't contact him, did you?" Sarek nodded. Her eyes flashed angrily. "Sarek, you promised. How could you?" "I regret going against your wishes, but Spock had to be informed, Amanda. You must realize that." Amanda sighed, and Sarek immediately knew that her anger had turned to resignation. "You're probably right, but our son has lost so much in the past couple of years. He lost his ship, and last month Valeris betrayed him. Sarek, he lost his very life. He doesn't need anything else added to all that." "Would you deny him the chance to see his mother again?" Although he did not speak the words aloud, the phrase, "for the last time," seemed to fill the garden. "No, I suppose not. But I wanted Spock to remember me the way I used to be." "That never occurred to me, Amanda. Your attitude is illogical and vain. Human vanity, I believe, is as foreign to my son as it is to me." The corners of Amanda's mouth curved up faintly. She held up 2 fingers. "Logic, always logic. Sarek, sometimes I think you'll make me lose my mind. But I love you anyway." Sarek crossed her fingers with his, then gently traced the contours of her face. The mental bond they shared was stronger than any words. Together they gazed at the Watcher, while the night breeze caressed their faces. Soft-footed, Spock followed his father down the hall to his parents' bedroom. He'd thought himself prepared for his mother's illness, but the Vulcan was shocked by her appearance. "Mother." Spock took one of her hands in his own, feeling the bones beneath her papery skin. "Spock, it's so good to see you." The first officer stayed with his mother for nearly an hour, talking quietly to her. When Amanda's eyes began to close, he squeezed her hand, then left. Later that day, Sarek and Spock walked in the gardens behind the villa. "Father, you mentioned earlier that you had something you wished to discuss with me. What is it?" "I have discovered a serious threat to the security of the Federation, Spock. It concerns the Freelands, the Romulans, and the Keep Earth Human League." "Indeed. Please explain, Father." Sarek told Spock of his findings on Freeland. Father, you are saying that the entire planet of Freeland is actually a Romulan outpost? That the Freelands are Romulans? That is precisely what I am saying, Spock. Fascinating. How did you learn about this, Father? I saw the truth with my own eyes many years ago, Spock. Insofar as I know, I am the only person to ever behold the true face of a Freeland. How did that happen? It is a long story which begins some 7 years before your birth. At that time, I was the Vulcan liaison to Freeland. My Freeland contact was named Darov. We had been working together for years, and as I do with Terran, I played chess with him. At that time, I was bonded to Tirea, Sybok's mother. The Vulcan ambassador assigned me to negotiate some trade agreements with Freeland, and I promptly took ship for the reclusive planet. I had not been feeling well, but I did not realize that the symptoms I was experiencing were those of my first Ponfar, until I actually reached the orbiting space station. I knew that I had only a matter of hours until the blood fever, the plaque tau, set in. But I thought I could stave off the madness long enough to conclude the negotiations. That proved to be a serious error in judgment. Sarek sat back in his seat before the Freeland comlink, trying to regain his calm. The heat of the Ponfar seared him. Suddenly he gasped, then sagged to the floor as the full force of plaque tau struck him like a phaser blast. Tirea, her desire called to him, threatened to engulf him. Wait. He attempted to transmit along the bond. I will be coming to you soon. Soon. Wait. Only a few days. But his telepathy was not strong enough to reach across interstellar space. He struggled to regain control, feeling consciousness slipping away from him. Dimly, Sarek could hear Darov calling him, alarmed. But he could not respond. Black flame filled his mind, and he was burning, burning, burning. Suddenly, Sarek felt hands on his shoulders, a voice in his ears, calling his name. Tirea? He lunged blindly at the newcomer. Moments later, he was lifted in arms as strong as his own, lifted and carried. A male voice spoke to him, assuring him that he was being taken to the med center. A male voice. Sarek bellowed with rage. He was being challenged. Tirea had chosen the Caliphie. How dare she? He thrashed, striking out, then fell with stunning force. Sarek lashed out, his hand seeking the challenger's throat. His fingers encountered cloth, and he ripped it away. Sarek saw features swim before his eyes, features that nearly mirrored his own. His rival was a Vulcan male, and he must kill him. Kill him. Kill him. Sarek snarled like an animal. Something struck him hard on the jaw, sending him spiraling down into oblivion. What happened then, Father? Sarek blinked, realizing he'd become lost in memory. Quickly, he explained to Spock that he'd awakened in the Freeland Automated Med Center and had returned immediately to Vulcan to wed Tirea. He'd dismissed the incident on Freeland as a plaque tau-induced hallucination. But lately, my son, when the Romulan threat grew, I began to wonder whether I was indeed hallucinating that day. As I searched out every bit of data I could locate concerning Freeland and its inhabitants, my suspicions grew. If the Freelands are indeed Romulans, Father, then why do you say they're linked to the Keep Earth Human League? The Keel wants nothing to do with extraterrestrials. I have discovered that many of the Keel leaders are being mentally influenced by Vulcans who are working for the Freelands. Vulcans? How is that possible, Father? I have checked the shipping records for the past 80 years, Spock. There is a 90% correlation between the disappearance of a ship within 10 parsecs of the Freeland sector and the presence of Vulcan citizens aboard. Those abducted Vulcans were taken to Freeland and forced by means of drugs and hormones to produce offspring. Their resulting children grew up under Romulan influence and training, and they served the Romulans. Captured Vulcan citizens. If what you say is true, we must free them. I agree. And these young Vulcans have been trained to mentally influence others? Yes, there is a 95.6 correlation between the presence of a Freeland envoy, scientist, or merchant in a city, and a sudden growth in the number of Keel converts. All of those Freelands were accompanied by Vulcan secretaries or administrative aides. And none of those young Vulcans were actually born on Vulcan. None of them, Father? Not one. Spock was quick to follow his father's logic. If you are correct, then this Romulan plot has been in existence for at least 80 years. Why are they doing this? Sarek did not answer directly. What are the goals of the Keel, Spock? As I understand them, to eliminate the presence of extraterrestrials on Earth and its colonies. And possibly from the Federation itself? Yes, in all probability. Think, my son. Apply logic. What would happen to the Federation if Vulcan were expelled as a member? Earth would have lost its most powerful ally. Indeed. A Federation without Vulcan would be weakened in many ways. Sarek regarded his son searchingly. Also consider, what is the current situation with the Klingons? Considering all the renegades raiding across the neutral zone, extremely unstable. Suppose someone deliberately set out to cause a war between the Federation and the Klingons, a Federation that does not have Vulcan for an ally. Spock sat for a long moment without speaking. His logical mind analyzed the situation, and the conclusion he reached made him frown. Most disquieting, Father. I believe the Romulans are employing an ancient human tactic. Divide and conquer. Indeed. That is why I must gain positive proof of what is happening so I can go before the Federation President and the Security Council. But you could tell the President of your suspicions, and he would... Sarek was already shaking his head. No, my son, you are forgetting that the Freelands may have influenced members of the Security Council, possibly even the President himself. I must have proof. I understand. I believe we should take James Kirk into our confidence and seek his advice. I was about to suggest that myself. Ambassador. The two Vulcans turned to see Sarek's young aide, indicating they should return to the house. Your mother is awake, Spock. We will discuss this further at a later time. The next morning, Sarek was sitting beside his wife, holding her hand as she slept, when Soren came in and beckoned him into the corridor. What is it, Soren? Ambassador, a priority call just came in for you from the Federation President. A band of Klingon renegades have captured the planet Kadura, and they are holding several thousand colonists hostage. Commander Keras is threatening to kill all the hostages unless the Federation agrees to negotiate a release and financial settlement with him. Soren's young features were tight with tension. Sir, the President has requested that you handle the negotiations for the release of Kadura personally. They will take place on Deneb 4. The President is waiting for your response, Ambassador. Sarek knew he would probably be away from home for at least 2 weeks, possibly 3. The Ambassador took a deep breath. If he agreed to negotiate for the lives of the people in Kadura, it was extremely unlikely that Amanda would survive long enough for him to go to Deneb 4 and return. Sarek squared his shoulders. The needs of the many. Inform the President that I will go, Soren. Arrange for transport to Deneb 4. I will leave within the hour. Amanda. The voice reached her in the darkness. Amanda Grayson Sarek stirred and opened her eyes. Sarek? She smiled at her husband, but her smile faded as she took in his grave expression. Something is wrong. What is it? Amanda, I regret that I must leave. Quickly, the ambassador explained about the endangered colony. Her heart contracted at his words. Amanda knew she would never see him again. Oh, Sarek, I don't want you to go. But I understand. I love you. Tears swam in Amanda's eyes, but she blinked them back fiercely. The least she could do was not mar their last farewell with weeping. I want you to take my journals with you, Sarek. I want you to read them. Will you promise me that? I will do as you ask, my wife. I know that you love me, Amanda thought, but I will not embarrass you by telling you so. Spock will be here with you. He will watch over you. I know. Farewell, Sarek. Farewell, Amanda.